Hi guys. This lecture will cover the Essay 3 assignment, which is in the module for this week, so make sure you read it. So basically this assignment is really similar to the Essay 2 assignment. The difference is, well, there are two main differences. You'll have slightly different topics, that probably goes without saying. And also this time you're doing the research yourselves. So for Essay 2, you basically wrote a research paper, you just didn't have to do the research. So you were given a kit, including a piece of literature, which you now know is a primary source, and three pieces of literary criticism, which you now know are secondary sources, and you put those together into an essay. For this essay, you'll be doing the same thing, except you'll actually be required to do the research yourself, and then you'll also be using a few more sources. So the source requirements are like slightly different for this essay. So don't forget about the structure and the type of analysis that you used for Essay 1 and Essay 2. You had an introduction with an analytical thesis statement that covered theme for those essays, and then you tried to break that thesis statement down into a few parts. If you did the assignment, as I've been suggesting, you tried to break that thesis statement down into a few parts, and then each of those parts became the main idea of a body paragraph, and then you pulled in ideas from your piece of literature, and then also from your secondary sources for Essay 2 to support the minor claim that began the main idea of each body paragraph. So this essay will work the same way. You'll have three critical perspectives in the Essay 3 assignment guide that are options. And then within each of those critical perspectives, you'll have two different pieces of literature to choose from. So you can go about that however you want, but essentially you'll be choosing one of those critical perspectives and then choosing a piece of literature, one of the two pieces of literature that's listed for that option. And so for this assignment, you'll be required to locate the piece of literature. That should be fairly easy to do. I've chosen pieces of literature that are widely read, famous, available for free online. If you want to find a good, reputable website for those pieces of literature, I mean, the Poetry Foundation website is always a good one. You can use Bartleby. You can use Project Gutenberg. I mean, there are a bunch of reputable websites out there that contain older, out-of-print primary sources, and all of those pieces of literature for this essay, I believe, fall into that category. So if you have any trouble locating your primary source, your piece of literature, of course, send me a message. I can help you find it. But they should be pretty easy to find if you just do a basic Google search. And for your pieces of literature, I mean, you don't need to go into like the databases or anything like that. You can just find those on the good old internet. But then after you locate and read your piece of literature, you'll also be required to research it. And to research it, you'll probably want to be using the college's databases like ProQuest, Academic Search Premier, stuff like that. You did use those. I believe all of you used those, or should have used those, to locate the secondary sources that were listed for options, not options, but listed for each kind of essay kit. For Essay 2, some of you, I believe, had secondary sources that were not in the databases, but I believe all of you had at least one that was in the databases. Anyway, you can go back and locate the directions for how to find those databases and how to use them. They are in our course content. If you scroll back through the modules, you'll see directions for how to find and use the databases. And I believe I also may have sent out an email about this. Anyway, if you have trouble locating them, of course, you can let me know. You can talk to the reference librarian at the college. You've got some different options there. So for this essay assignment, you'll have at least 6 sources total, or you should have at least 6 sources total, no matter which option you choose. You might have more than that, and that's okay. 6 is the minimum. So the way I'm getting to 6 is your piece of literature. That does count as a source, so make sure that as you're using it, you don't forget to quote it and cite it and treat it like a source. Even though it's literature, it's a different kind of source. It still is a source. And then at least 5 pieces of scholarly, peer-reviewed literary criticism. And you can have more than that if you want, but you need to be using at least 5 pieces of this. And all of these pieces of literary criticism also need to be cited both in text and in a list of works cited. Make sure not to like use ideas from those, but then not cite those ideas in text. If you're not making it clear to the reader in the body of your essay where you're using ideas from those pieces of literary criticism, then you're guilty of accidental plagiarism. So make sure you're being careful about introducing ideas from those pieces of criticism. You can just do something simple like, according to Smith, and then put the quote in, and then after the quote, you put the citation in. And if it sounds repetitive, I don't care. I'd rather have you write an essay that sounds repetitive than have you write an essay that contains accidental plagiarism. Let's see, I think I've covered everything on this page. This PowerPoint I feel like is a little disjointed, but we're working with what we've got here. For this essay assignment, make sure to remember the following list of random tidbits. So citation and what it means to use a source. You've been presented with videos and lectures about this throughout the quarter, especially throughout the throughout the, how do I want to say this? The first third of the quarter didn't contain stuff like that, and then the last 2/3 of the quarter have contained stuff like that. That made almost no sense. Everything after Essay 1 has pretty much been about source use. So go back and scroll through the modules, make sure you're not forgetting the stuff that you've watched videos about and taken quizzes on. Don't kind of like just think of those videos and quizzes as being like disconnected from the actual essays that you're writing in the class, because they're not. I'm having you watch those and take quizzes over them for a reason, with the hopes that you'll absorb what it actually means to like use a source and how to cite that source and how to avoid plagiarism, stuff like that, how to integrate ideas from sources into your writing. Those are all hard skills to learn, and so I'm trying to present you with as much content as I can find related to that without totally overwhelming you. Anyway, don't forget to use each source that's in your works cited in the body of your essay. That means for each secondary source, each piece of literary criticism, and for each primary source. I mean, if you have more than one, you probably won't, but for the piece of literature you're using, all of those things need to be in the bibliography or the works cited page for your essay. And also, everything that's in your works cited page needs to be referenced and used at least once in your essay. Otherwise, you're not using it. Or you're using it and plagiarizing it. So make sure you make it clear like where you're using ideas from your sources. Make it clear to the reader. Make it clear to me. If you're not sure how to do that, I can help you, but hopefully you've kind of figured that out by now after watching the videos in the class and after writing Essay 2. As I've kind of already touched on a bit, review the sample research paper that you were presented with earlier in the quarter. That's it's not like a research paper from this class written by a student, but it's a research paper about literature that is written in the same way that I'm hoping you'll write the essays in this class. And it's not something that you maybe will understand in terms of like the literature that's in it. Maybe you haven't read that stuff, but you can read it and pay attention to how the sources are used, how they're integrated, how the writer makes it clear where he or she, I forget if it's a he or a she, is using ideas from various sources and citing those appropriately. And then if you scroll to the works cited page at the end, you'll see that for every source that's referenced in the essay, there's also a works cited entry, and vice versa. So for every source that's in the works cited page, you'll also notice it's referenced at least once in the essay. So that's something to go back and pay attention to. Your thesis statement, so this is something else to remember, just because sometimes when students get to the final essay in the class, it's like all the other stuff that they've been working on throughout the quarter starts to go out the window because they see research paper on your own and they panic. Don't do that. Don't forget the stuff that you've already done really well this quarter. So your thesis statement, your minor claims, the main ideas of your body paragraphs, those have to be your own ideas. Those should not be taken from sources. So you'll probably find as you research some really good ideas, and those ideas should be used in your paper, but they shouldn't be like the bones of your paper, if that makes sense. They shouldn't be your thesis statement or your minor claims. They should be used to support your thesis statement and your minor claims. Also, I've kind of mentioned this already, but use the materials presented throughout this quarter as you research and write. Don't forget to go back and look at the videos I've had you watch this quarter. Look at the different things I've had you read this quarter. Go back and check it all out again. Make sure that you're not forgetting like how to integrate ideas into your writing and how to cite those ideas that you're integrating, etc. Okay, for the process for essay 3, for writing essay 3, I mean, that process is going to look a lot the same. It's going to look very similar. What did I just say? I don't know. That process is going to look really similar to the process that you went through for essay 1 and essay 2, but with some added extra stuff because this is a harder assignment. So I'm having you do more, I guess I would say, scaffolding or little assignments to kind of get you to the point where you're ready to write essay 3. So we're spending a little more time on this essay because it's a more complicated assignment and you have more responsibility because you're doing your own research. And so I want to make sure I'm not just like throwing it at you and having you do it. Okay, so first of all, you'll need to read the assignment. That probably goes without saying, but please make sure you read the assignment. Read the whole thing. Don't not do that because you want to make sure you know what you're being asked to do before you try to do it. Locate and read your piece of literature. After you've settled on a topic, do that next. So go find the poem or story you're writing about. Make sure you can find it, read it, do that early, read it a few times. Make sure you pick something you like. I mean, make life easy for yourself. There are a lot of options for this essay, so hopefully one of the options is something you like. Pick something you like, pick something you can relate to. Read it. Then you'll notice that you're being asked to write a research paper proposal this time around, and then also an annotated bibliography. So there are really specific directions and requirements for those assignments in the module, and you'll see those if you go in and look. But basically, the proposal is what it sounds like. It's a proposal to write a research paper. And the reason I'm having you do this is that before you actually do your research and go through the process of writing the essay, I want you to think about like a research question and what kind of a direction you want to go in, because otherwise I'm afraid you might just like freak out and kind of not know what to do, or, So settle on a topic, write a proposal, look at the directions I'm giving you. I mean, there are specific requirements I'm giving you for the proposal assignment, but submit that. You'll get feedback from me and you'll get a sense of whether like your topic is going to work or not. After you do the proposal, you'll notice in the module you're also being asked to write an annotated bibliography. And there are specific directions for this as well. So, don't just listen to this and then try to write it. There are directions for how to do it. Essentially, though, an annotated bibliography is a works cited page, but it doesn't have the sources that you're necessarily using in your essay. It's every source you've found. So you're going to find more sources than you're going to use in your paper, unless you're like the luckiest person in the entire world. You'll find, maybe 10, 15, 20, I don't know how many sources you'll find. You're not going to use all of those in your paper. You'll whittle that down and choose the best 5 or 6 or however many. 5 is the minimum number. You can use as many as you want. But an annotated bibliography is a works cited page that contains a citation for each source you find, not necessarily each source you're going to use, and then a little blurb, maybe like a paragraph or so, about each source, what it's about, what you find interesting in it, if you've scanned it or read it, whether you think you might use it, if you think you might use it, how, things about it that are problematic or that make you not want to use it, things about it that are interesting and make you want to use it. And this is a way for you to show me that you've done the research before you start writing, A, and it's also a way for you to, B, make sure you keep track of the stuff that you've found as you're researching, and then you'll have a nice list of all of those sources with a description of each one, so that when you actually go to write the essay, I mean, you can cross out the ones you're not going to use or whatever, but you'll have a nice like descriptive list of all your sources. So as you start writing, it'll be easy for you to find the ideas that you want to use when you're actually writing, because otherwise, I mean, it's hard to juggle, maybe as you've found in trying to juggle 4 sources for the last paper, it's hard to juggle 6 sources when you're writing an essay or more, and to remember where everything is and how it's all going to fit together. So that's why I'm having you do this. Now, the annotated bibliography isn't something you'll actually attach to your final product. What you'll do for the final product, for the essay, is you'll write a normal works cited page that only has on it the sources that you're actually using in your paper. So keep that in mind. Don't like hang on to that annotated bibliography and then attach it to the last page of your essay, because you don't need to do that. You do need a works cited page, but it should only have on it the sources you're actually using for essay 3, and it doesn't need to have descriptions of each source because, it's just not necessary. Okay, so those are like preliminary assignments that will, I hope, get you ready to write essay 3. Next, after you've done that stuff, you'll be asked to do another feedback reflection. You've done one of these already in the class, where you went back and you looked at the feedback I gave you for essay 1, you reflected on it, and you considered like how you want to apply that feedback to the writing of essay 2. I'll be asking you to do something similar this time. Make sure you read the directions because it's a bit different. And the reason I'm having you do this is that the best way, I think, for you guys to improve your writing in this class is to apply the feedback that I'm giving you on previous essays to each essay as you write it. I think sometimes it can be hard for students to locate that feedback, or maybe they don't want to read it because they're afraid it might be embarrassing, or they kind of just don't care because they see the grade and they're like, I got a B, good enough. Please read it, and not just because I spent time on it, which I did, but also because don't you want to do better on the next essay or keep doing well? If so, I'm giving you tips on how to do that. And I'm trying to even do it in like a bullet point way so it's easy to read. So anyway, that's the reason I'm having you do those feedback reflections, because I'm trying to like force you to read the feedback I'm giving you so that you can then apply it to your next essay. All right. Finally, you'll decide which sources from your annotated bibliography to actually use in your essay. I've touched on that before, that, all of the sources in your annotated bibliography, all the sources you find when you're doing your research are not necessarily going to be sources you'll actually use in your essay. Some of them will turn out to be dead ends. You'll think they seem promising, then you'll read them and you'll be like, I don't really think this would fit with my writing. I don't think that I can think of a way to use this. Don't like shoehorn a source in. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. Find something else. So settle on which sources you're going to use. You'll need to have at least 6. So your piece of literature plus 5 pieces of scholarly literary criticism. You can have more than that if you want. Write a draft. Then we'll do the peer review process again. And then after that, you can revise your essay and submit it for a grade. And then essentially the quarter is over. So the end is in sight here, guys. We can do this. As always, if you have questions about this assignment, feel free to send me a message. I hold weekly office hours. Those are in the syllabus, the course syllabus. Those are in person, so feel free to drop by. You don't have to make an appointment. You can if you want, but I'm guaranteed to be in my office at that time. So, unless I send out a message saying I'm not going to be, but otherwise I'll be there. I can also meet with you on Zoom. So if you're having trouble, give yourself enough time. I might be cranky if you're asking me to meet with you like 3 hours before the essay is due, but with that said, otherwise I'm more than happy to help you through this process. I know it's a complicated essay assignment. It involves a lot, so ask for help if you need.